This is Mihawk, a mighty warlord of the sea and the world's strongest swordsman, and today we're going to try cosplay him. Or well, at least check off the first thing on the Mihawk cosplay to-do list, which is to make his sword, one of the Saijo o Wazamono, Yoru. And hey, if we are being generous, you can call this a how-to or a tutorial, but I make plenty of mistakes, try not to copy any of those bits. Anyway, before we get started, let's go shopping for all these lovely supplies we're going to need. To make Yoru, we need a template, and here's one I found earlier. All I did was find a picture of Yoru I like online, thanks Nogari0502, throw into GIMP or whatever photo editing software you like, erase off the handle since we won't be needing that, and then export as a PDF using Adobe Acrobat, so we can print it as a poster, and I went with about 400% to get the size I want, but do whatever size feels right for you. Also, if you're lazy, my template is linked in the description. After printing out the template, we can get to making, starting with the blade. For this, let's grab some cardstock. First off, stick your template together and cut it out. Cut the blade and hilt as separate bits, it's just a bit easier that way. You should end up with a nice paper Yoru, but we don't want a paper one now, do we? For the blade, I'm using cardstock. I stuck two A2 pieces together with some trusty red duct tape. You don't even want to know the abominations I've created with this stuff. And then I traced out the blade pattern onto the cardstock, cut it out twice, and now we have the two sides of the blade. Now I may have forgot to record it, but to give the blade some stability, I made an EVA foam insert to go into the top half of the blade. Just trace the template onto some 5mm EVA foam, and cut off the bottom part to give you the top half of the blade in foam form. Then stick that down to one of the blade pieces using some contact cement. Make sure to coat both surfaces and wait for the adhesive to go tacky. Once the foam's stuck down, add it to your aluminum rod / round bar. Mine's 1 meter long, but it could have done with being a bit longer, so my advice is to go for 1.3 or 1.5 meter. You can also cut it down if it gets too long. Just adhesive the rod under the foam. I use contact cement, but hot glue or super glue would probably be a better choice since my cement didn't really stick too well. Then stick the other half of the blade down on top. In theory, the top should be thicker than the bottom, due to the foam insert, giving the blade a nice curved look. Make sure to press down on the bottom so it's nice and flush, or you might end up with a load of wrinkles like on mine. If you didn't get the foam inserts to match up exactly with the top of the blade, you can fill it with either some hot glue or some kind of sealant. I use C21 clear sealant. Wrap a layer of foam around the exposed aluminum rods. Wrap just enough that it fits snugly into your PVC pipe / metal tube that you are using for the handle. If your rod isn't quite long enough like mine, you can stick some extra length on. I used an old metal rod I found in my shed, but for your sake, just start with a longer rod to begin with. And with that, the blade part of the blade is done. If you want, you can spray it now or later, really up to you. In my case, I sprayed it next with some black spray paint, just to make sure I get the entire blade black before sticking more bits to it. Always give a few coats of paint and finish off with some clear coat. For this, I use Rust-Oleum Crystal Clear Gloss Lacquer. Since it gives a nice shiny finish, perfect for metallic props. While you're outside, you might as well cut down your PVC pipe / metal tube to the right size. Just make sure it looks proportional to the rest of the sword. Next, let's get on with the hilt. Mark out the template onto some 5mm EVA foam. For this, I like to use a silver marker pen, but whatever you can see is fine. Then cut out your template and congrats, you got one done. Stick the end of your pipe along the middle of the foam so one end is along the edge of the foam, and then as you'd guess, cut another one. This time you want to chop it in half down the middle and slowly cut each half down till it fits with the pole in between. Do it again, but this time cut a groove down the middle of each half. In here we'll stick another aluminum rod, or in my case more garden apparatus. Make sure these go right to the ends and stick them securely to the pole. I used hot glue. Add another 2 layers, or however many you want to achieve Yoru's desired thickness, and there you go, the hilt is now in one solid piece. To get rid of those ugly layer lines on the outside, cut out a strip of foam slightly wider than your hilt is deep, and stick it down around the perimeter of the hilt. For ease, I did this in 2 halves, one for the top and one for the bottom. There's a few details on the hilt, like a raised square in the middle and some bits near the ends. For these, I just cut out some bits of foam and stuck them down. No template, just kind of really free-handed this. For the details on the hilt, I opted to use hot glue, though you could do this in foam if you wanted to. There's not really a fixed design for Mihawk's hilt details, so I just kind of did whatever. And to disastrous consequences, like what the hell is this? Yeah, maybe plan it out first so you can end up with the abomination that I ended up with. In general, just try to be more neat than me. Oh, and also stick down some foam pieces on the blades and add the same hot glue mark. At least these ones look a little better. For the end of the handle, I added a foam dowel. You can buy these from Polyprops, but if you don't have them to hand, you could probably get away with just using a strip of EVA foam. Stick this dowel down into a ring and then glue it to the end of the handle. Painting time. Like with the blade, I gave everything a few coats of black spray paint. For best results, prime first, but I didn't have any primer on me, so oh well. That said, I recommend Polyprops' Seal Prime, that's what I use, or if you live in the States, use your bloody Plastidip. It's expensive as hell to get here in the UK, alright, so I've got to use what I can use. I chose to use acrylics and a brush for this next bit, but you could also spray with some gold spray paint if you want. I just want a little more control since I'm going for a more realistic and weathered look. Also, I'm using a foam brush because they are great and you should use them. Basically, they reduce brush marks a lot. Real godsend. I went over the whole hilt with some gold acrylic. The key here is not to put too much paint in each spot. We don't want it to completely cover black. We want some of it to shine through, gives it an aged and dirty look. If you get too much gold in one spot, dab it off with some toilet roll. This can take time and you may even need to paint on some more black and dab it off in parts. But keep going till you get the look you want. And of course, if you want a more anime accurate paint job, just paint it completely gold. It's your sword, do whatever you want. Oh, and always clear coat over the top. Oh, and don't forget to paint the bits on the blade and at the ends of the handle too. Painting done, now for more arts and crafts you'd expect a child to do. I'm an adult, alright mum, cosplaying, it's really mature. To make the gemstones for the hilt, I used the old hot glue trick. First draw out a circle the size of your gem onto some tin foil, colour this in using a marker. I use my Copic markers because I'm fancy, but any old kind will do. Make sure to stay in the lines, we aren't children after all, and then hot glue over the top in a roughly circular shape. Again, staying in the lines, we aren't children. Once the glue cools, cut it out, bend back any annoying foil that's sticking out, and you get a nice shallow gem. Yoru has 3 sizes of gem, so just choose the 3 circle sizes you want and get making. Now, like with a lot of Yoru, the number of gems is not consistent, and given the size of your sword, you may have to just do what looks right. In my case, that's 1 big blue, 5 middle blues, and 4 small greens per side, but do whatever amount you want is your sword. Hot glue those bad boys down and look how wealthy you look. Also, yes, I know not all of mine are perfectly round, but not all gemstones are. Anyway, just get off my back. Lastly comes the handle. For the wrap, I used some old faux leather I had lying around, but you can use strips of pretty much anything. I chopped down a nice long strip, sprayed it white with some leather spray paint. I made sure to only give a light spray in parts, same principle as with the hilt. We want some of the black to shine through as if it's been dirtied up. Hot glue one end to the base of the handle and then wrap it around, gluing periodically as you do. Nice and easy. Honestly, I can't tell you how long this took and how frustrating it was, hence why I didn't film it. But in the end, we got a nice handle wrap, which really ties the whole thing together, and honestly is not my favourite part of the sword. Oh, and I hot glued this blue glass ball to the end. You could probably make one somehow, but it was a couple quid, so shoot me. And there we go, that was Yoru. Sure, the blade's wrinkled, it wriggles around a bit too much for my liking, the hot glue looks a mess, and the wrap is bumpy in places, but I made it myself, and isn't that the most important bit? Plus, it's big as hell. But of course we aren't done, as Yoru is just one piece of this Mihawk shaped puzzle. In the next video we will make Mihawk's dagger, start on the hat, and start aging these trousers. So until next time, I've been Seph the Sin, the Deadly Sin of Geek. Wait, wrong channel. What I meant to say was that this has been Seph the Sin Cosplay, and remember, your cosplays probably look better than mine.